Do you want to know how to taper prednisone? So many people need to know this guidance. And before I dive deeper in precisely how to taper prednisone and show you exactly how to use my printable taper chart, I have to give this disclaimer. First, that nothing I'm about to say contradicts your doctor. Your doctor is the expert in your care, and so you should follow your doctor's advice, and everything you do should be in close communication with your doctor. And you're going to need the prescriptions from your doctor to make this happen. I recommend getting prescriptions for at the minimum 5 and 1 milligram tablets. You could also have 10 or 20 depending on where you start. But no matter what, you've got to start by having a good working relationship with your doctor and communicating exactly how you're feeling, because we need to keep two things in balance: your disease coming back, whether it's your asthma flaring so you can't breathe, or your joints suddenly having pain, or your shoulders having pain. That has to stay completely stable. And then the other thing is we want to prevent withdrawal syndrome. That means you feel exhausted, maybe like a cold is coming on or something, but you don't have a runny nose, you don't have a cough, but you just feel that yucky, awful feeling. That might be withdrawal syndrome. And so when you're tapering, look out for those two things: your disease coming back and your withdrawal syndrome. Okay. If you want to know more about those things, check out my other videos. But what I want to dive deep into is how to taper prednisone using my Prednisone Taper Chart. And you can download this, print it off yourself by clicking the link below, how to taper prednisone. Okay. So now I want to show you my Prednisone Taper Chart. And you need to figure out first what dose you're currently taking. And then there are lots of other considerations that determine how fast you taper. So check out my video all about the things to consider before tapering. And then you can print out the whole taper chart or just the pages that you need for your taper strategy. So I went through the medical literature. I went through my personal experience dispensing prescriptions in the pharmacy. I did as much research I could to find out the most typical prednisone taper strategies. And then I put them in my taper chart printable so that you would know what is most common and some ways to do it. And the way it's organized throughout this document is by shortest to longest duration of taper. And so the first one is what a lot of people can handle. And then as the tapers get more drawn out, less and less people need that kind of a taper, but they need more refined guidance. And so it's more intense and purposeful at that point. So let's start with the most common, easy, simple taper. That's the one I call short-term prednisone 5 weeks taper chart. And this all fits on one page and it's really easy. If you happened to start at 40 milligrams, then you take 40 milligrams every single day for 1 week. And then the next week, you take 30 milligrams every single day for 1 week. Then on week 3, you take 20 milligrams every single day for 1 week. Then on week 4, you take 10 milligrams every day for 1 week. And finally, on week 5, you take 5 milligrams every day for a week. And then at that point, you can simply stop taking prednisone. Watch out for your disease flaring and your withdrawal symptoms. But if you are feeling okay at that point, then you can just stop. That is definitely the most common taper I saw in the pharmacy as a practicing pharmacist. But if that doesn't work for you, because of the many factors I mentioned in my other video about what you need to consider, here is a longer term taper chart. And I'm going to assume that you already got down to 20 milligrams, because at 20 milligrams, that's where we often see a lot of people struggle. Sometime around 15 milligrams, and then again around 7.5 milligrams are usually spots certain people get stuck at. So this is designed to help you get through those spots, which I call the taper trap. All right, so this taper strategy, instead of dropping from 20 all the way down to 10, which is a 50% drop, we're only going to drop closer range to 10 to 20% each of these drops. Because for a lot of people, it doesn't matter the milligram drop, it matters the percentage drop. So it doesn't matter whether you're dropping 10 milligrams, it's whether you're dropping 10% of the dose. So if we're dropping from 20 down to 17.5, that's closer to 20% than if we were to be dropping from 20 to 10 milligrams, which is a 50% drop. A lot of people just can't handle that humongous drop. So for this taper, we start out at 20 milligrams and do that for a week. Week 2, we go to 17.5 milligrams and hold that for a week. Week 3 is 15 milligrams. Week 4 is 12.5 milligrams. And week 5 is 10 milligrams. So you can see between 20 and 10 milligrams, it took us 5 weeks, and each time we dropped by 2.5 milligrams. You can either be using a 5 milligram tablet and cutting it in half, or you could be using a 10 milligram tablet and cutting it in fourths, or you could have your doctor prescribe you a 2.5 milligram tablet. Those are all ways you could be making this drop, okay? Then at 10 milligrams, things get a lot more refined. We are still wanting to keep our goal of dropping by 10 to 20%. And so at this point, we're dropping by 1 milligram from 10 to 9 instead of from 10 to 7.5. So on week 6, we're going to 9 milligrams. And to get to that, you need either 9 1 milligram tablets or 5 milligram and 4 1 milligram tablets. Okay. So you're holding 9 milligrams for a week, and then you hold 8 milligrams for a week, and then you drop to 7 milligrams for a week, 6 for a week, 5 for a week, 4 for a week, 3 for a week, 2 for a week, and then 1 for a week. And at that point, if you're feeling okay, you can go to 0 and be done. That's so exciting. But if that didn't work for you, I'm sorry, go back to the lowest effective dose where you weren't having your disease flaring or withdrawal symptoms, and try my even longer term taper chart. And this is where instead of dropping that many milligrams per week, we're going to drop that many milligrams per month. So instead of it being a 14-week taper chart, it's a 14-month taper chart. And it is dropping much slower. The duration of the drop is 4 times longer. Hopefully that gives your body the chance to make the changes that it needs to be able to handle that kind of a drop. And so this one is published in the scientific literature. It's a thing, and it theoretically helps. But still, a lot of people get stuck somewhere, and dropping even 1 milligram can get really uncomfortable. So that's where the next strategy comes from. And this is called the alternate day strategy. And this strategy, not the way I have it in this document, but the strategy of alternate day strategy is actually published in the FDA package insert for prednisone. This is actually approved by the FDA using alternate day dosing. And in that package insert, it talks about going from 5 milligrams to 0 to 5 milligrams to 0 to 5 milligrams to 0, so that every other day you get drug, no drug, drug, no drug, drug, no drug. And the strategy, I think, was to preserve adrenal function. I haven't personally heard of I've heard of very few people who've even tried this, and even fewer who've been successful with it. Most people just can't handle drug, no drug. Like, it causes withdrawal symptoms. It just is so uncomfortable. And so usually that is not going to work. In this case, what I'm proposing is an alternate day strategy where we do 1 dose and a different dose, not 1 dose and then a no dose, okay? So we're going to call it old dose and new dose. So we're going to start here at 10 milligrams because that's where people really get struggling with a 1 milligram drop. So we start with 10 milligrams, and then the next day we do 9 milligrams, and then the next day 10 milligrams, and the next day 9 milligrams, 10, 9, 10, 9. And we do that every other day for a week. And then the following week, we hold this new dose of 9 milligrams. The next week, 9 milligrams becomes the old dose, and 8 milligrams becomes the new dose. And so we go 9, 8, 9, 8, 9, 8, every other day, a different dose. Because that's giving us the ability to get closer to 8.5 milligrams, kind of. So that's the idea, is we're alternating every day, old dose, new dose, old dose, new dose. And then the next week we hold 8 milligrams. And the following week, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7. And the next week, hold 7. And so on, all the way until we get down to 1 milligram. And then at that point, you could either cut it in half and do 1.5, 1.5, and then just hold a 0.5 milligram tablet, or you could go off and go to 0. Those are my best tips for how to taper off prednisone. Just click the link below to download my prednisone taper chart and figure out exactly which one is working for you. And you can just mark it off. And if you don't mark it off, I swear you will forget. I'm a pharmacist. I'll forget these things. Just mark it off every time you are taking the pill so that you know I did it today and I know what dose I took today. Just click the link below to download my printable taper chart so that you can escape the taper trap. Signing off as Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist.